In this fifth lesson of the GIMP course, we're gonna explore more three different menus, which are the select menu, the view menu, and the image menu. We're not gonna go into depth. These are still the starting lessons of the course, so they're gonna be really basic, and we're gonna see some basic things. In the previous lesson, we saw how we can navigate, how we can manage the interface, and how we can start to use the various panels and tools like the navigation panel and so on. And also we can do the basic operation, work with different formats. So in this video, we're gonna start from here. We're gonna open a image that we got from other lessons here, which let me go here in the folder. I created a folder asset here. I just added to my favorites. So here I'm saving all the assets that I'm creating, the images. So I'm gonna use this Wilbur Big PNG GIMP logo. And the first time we're gonna create an image is gonna ask us how many pixels we want and what the color that will be. But when we open an image, we can still see those information right here in the preview. So we have a little thumbnail and we can see how big is the file. So it's 35.2 kilobyte. And we see the pixels 300 times 224 pixels. And also if it has the alpha channel, which is the channel that is going to allow the image to be transparent in some parts. So in this case, to have a transparent background. So alpha is really important for that. And RGB, it's red, green, and blue. So when I see this, I can understand that this as the alpha channel, and I can work with transparency. And we already talked about these formats again in the previous lesson. If I select JPEG, you can see it doesn't have the alpha. And also the PNG and the JPEG, they don't have multiple layers, only have one. So you can see here I have one layer, and here I have one layer. So some image formats, they can contain more layers, and especially the XCF, which we saw it's the source format in GIMP, can contain more than one layer. So if I get here like a composition that I already created, so these are all one layer, but I believe that we zip this one here as two layers. So it's going to tell me how many layers are in there. Of course, if I increase the pixels, the resolution, the size, if I increase the color depth, the number of colors, if I increase the number of layers, everything is gonna increase the size of the document. So we need to know what all these things are, and we already started in the previous lesson. We're gonna continue on this path. So here I'm gonna just open this PNG logo that we got from the website of GIMP, and there you go. So this is our document right now, and the document matches the image because we opened the image. If we open up a new document, here is where we can use a template. We can define the image size in terms of pixels, and also in the advanced option, we can choose a different RGB system or color depth or precision. So all of this stuff we already saw. So if I say, for example, 1000 and 2020, 224, and I open up, it's going to be like a really big document. So if I place this logo right here, it's going to be small. Now I can still change the document size and aspect, even though I've already created a document, or even if I open up an existing document like this image. How do I do that? And this is a really important difference to know whether we are working or whether we want to scale or change the image, the graphic, or the Canva or the surface that the workspace we're working on. So we can do all of this here if we go into image. So the first thing actually we can do is duplicate. So if I duplicate this image or Control D, is not only going to duplicate, like copy and paste as we saw earlier, but it's going to create a new document, a new file that I can save. Now this little star up here, it tells me that this is not saved yet. In fact, this is called untiled. So until I save this the first time, this is still gonna be untiled. So I need to go to File and go to Save As, and I need to save it in XCF, or I need to export it as a PNG or another format. So if I call this test1, and I'm gonna save this into the assets, and I can also change the format here. Let's call it JPG. There you go. I'm gonna export it and choose also the quality. Also, the quality affects the size, the number of colors, the approximation, and so on. So this is all like artificial intelligence. So it's the software deciding how you want to compress or how you want to generate new colors and pixels. So let's export. Okay, so we can see now we have two different documents. This one here is called Wild or Big. This one here is called test1. Now, if I go to open, just to show you quickly. Now, test1, even though it's the same exact image, it's smaller than the original right here, kind of 3 times smaller. And it doesn't have the alpha channel. That's also causing the file to be a little bit smaller than the original. Okay, and this is also a good choice when you wanna maintain the original right here and work on the copy so that you don't accidentally change it. Now I want to remove this because we already work with new documents. I want to work with this one here. So if I go back to image and want to change the canvas size, I can go back here, and again I can choose a template as we did at the beginning. So I can choose a template. So let's say that I want to use A4, or I can then modify the template from here, modifying the canvas size. So I can make it the canvas size a little smaller. So let's make like 100. And this is millimeters. So be careful on the units. This is not pixels. This is millimeters. So it's bigger. And the height, so you can see it's pretty high. So you can use a template. You can modify the template from here. You can create your custom. If you want to maintain the proportions, you can lock this. So if I change here the width, for example, you say 50, it's also going to affect the height. Now you can see that the logo doesn't fit in this banner anymore. It doesn't fit on these limits. So now I can click and drag and I can move it around. So I'm also going to do a crop of this image. But before we do that, let me just go back and increase the width. So let's do 100 so you can see it fits the image, and I can decide where I want to position. So I can change the offset on the X and on the epsilon. And I can only go positive here because I cannot go outside. Or I can do center, so it's going to be perfectly centered into this new document. Now we have other operations here like resize layers, fill width, and other stuff, but we want to keep it like this time. So I can reset anytime to bring it back, or I can again set here a new document. So let's do like this one here, 300, and you can see now it's kind of stretched the file. So be careful to keep the proportions, because that could alter the original image sometimes. So let's change here now the width again. Okay, you can see this is fine. So let's resize instead of reset. And there you go. So this is our new document. It's pretty vertical. Now, I will not talk about navigation because we already talked about that in the previous video. So you can see I can move around. Now, the yellow dashed line represent the graphic that I'm using in this layer right here. We only have one layer, and this is the actual dimension of our document. So the Canva. So be careful because Canva size is not the image size. So let me just go back to show you another way we can do this. So if I go to the image and instead do the scale image, let's see what's gonna happen. So again, I'm gonna do something similar. So let's do like width 100 and height. You can see it's the same is proportion. So I'm gonna unlock the proportion because I want this like to be 300 of height and 100 width pixels. And resolution, I'm gonna keep it like this, but you can change it. We already talked about resolution previously. Interpolation, well, this is something I'm gonna explain later, but think about this as a artificial intelligence, which is gonna try to figure out what you want to do, especially when you scale up. No, not when you downscale, but when you upscale, this is gonna be like a little bit better. So quality interpolation. So let's scale. Again, if you reset, you're gonna reset everything. So I wanna scale, and you can see the difference right here. So now it's not using only the document, it's not scaling only the document, the canvas size, but it's also scaling the image. So there's a pretty big difference between working with the image and working with the Canva. Again, I'm going to go back, Control Z, and let's go back to image. So we can duplicate, we can change the mode, we can do also grayscale, or we can use, if we go here, the indexed, which means that I can work with colors essentially. So I can generate an optimized palette with maximum number of colors set right here. I can use a web optimized palette if I'm working on a website. I can use black and white. 1-bit palette means really few colors. Or use a custom palette like web, or if I click here, you have many different types. Now, the only way we can test this is to apply it. So we just need to go here and do convert. So you can see this is the result. Let me just, again, go back a little bit and do a couple of tests, and then you can proceed on your own. So let me try with more colors. So you can see all of these as a number of colors. So 22 is really low. So if I convert this, you can see it's going to look like posterized, or like a whole poster effect. So it's really important the number of colors that we're using, or also called the color depth, which you can find also here. Precision, you can change here. You can see we are now to 8-bit, which means like 256 colors, and then other, we already talked about this also, by the way. So we can go back to indexed and try to find something that is like a little bit more complex, 256. Let's try with this one here and do convert. So you can see it's kind of more, a little bit more defined than before. So the more you increase that number of colors or color depth, the more you will have something that is going to look like a picture, a realistic picture. The lower you have these values, the less it's going to look good. So let's try with this convert. So you can see it's going to give you, different results depending on which colors you're going to use to translate this one here. Now there is also another thing, but we're not gonna go too much in depth in this, which is the dithering. And if you want to know more what dithering is, it's also kind of artificial intelligence by the software to try to reproduce the colors and details of an image that are not there. So, well, you find many examples in Google if you want to know more. So it's kind of a technical thing, but you can see this looks like old web graphics, like in the 90s. I don't know. They had this problem because they couldn't use too many, well, images that were too big, too heavy. Internet connection was really slow, so you need to find ways to make things lighter. So if I use less pixels, so I'm gonna rescale the image. Again, I'm gonna do it here, but I wanna keep the proportion usually. So if I decrease the size of the image, let's say that I wanna like 20 pixels only for width, and well, this is probably really too low. Let's make like 40. I'm gonna decrease the size, and also if I decrease the number of colors and channels, I'm gonna decrease the size. So let's scale. And if I zoom in with Control and the scroll wheel, you can see that this is really pixelated, but it's going to be really, really small in terms of size. So you either, if you want to scale an image, you either scale the size or you scale the color depth or the number of channels or the compression and so on. So everything is gonna be in there. So this is the mode. We have precision again. So you can see I cannot go higher now. And color management, right now we don't want to see that. So let's go here to transform. Now, if I flip this, you can see that the image is going to be flipped. Or if I rotate, but be careful because right now we are not actually flipping only the image, but we're going to do this with the whole document. So if I rotate 90 degrees, you can see all the document has been rotated. So I inverted the width and the height in this case. And again, I can continue here to rotate 90 degrees, 180, and go. And I can also do, well, let me just go back to transform and rotate 180. So this is back to the original rotation. And I can do also arbitrary rotation. Now, if I do this, let's say that I want to rotate 45 or 30 degrees, I can also click here and rotate. There you go. I can also change the pivot of the rotation, the pixels, the center. So if I reset, it's going to reset everything. And if I readjust, so you can see that it's going to crop out this part of the image. So the canvas is going to stay the same, but the image is going to be rotated and cropped. Let me just go back, Control Z. If I do instead rotate, there we go. It's going to rotate the graphic that we're working on, but it's also going to affect the size of the canvas. So this is pretty different. You need to know to understand the difference between Canva and image again, or Canva and the graphic element inside. So let's go back again here. So you have these different transforms. Again, if I go to Canva size, you can see now it's different, it's bigger. It has changed. So let's, instead of using a bigger Canva like this, a bigger template, let's make it smaller. So instead of using millimeters, I'm going to use pixels. Let's say that I want something that is going to be 200 times 200, so perfectly squared document. And you can see that my graphic design doesn't fit in that. So now I can move around this, and this is basically becoming a cropping region, a cropping square. And now I can go also negative here in X and epsilon. So I can move essentially from top to bottom and from left to right. And I can also center here. So if I now resize, it's also going to crop, but I can still see the image there, the limit of the image, of the original layer, which is identified by that yellow dashed line. Now I am here in the rotate tool because I can now click and rotate again, but I can also move with the move tool, the image around. So the image is still there, but I can still figure out how I want to position that into my smaller Canva. So again, when you start to work with image, Canva, and the tools here, things are gonna start to be a little bit confusing, or more confusing than before, more complex. Now we can also do fit Canva to layers. So it's gonna bring it back to the original because it's gonna fit again the Canva to the dashed yellow line, which represent our carbon layer at the moment. And then we can do also fit canvas to selection. Now let's talk briefly about selection, then we're gonna continue later because we said that we're gonna talk about select, view, and image menus. So when I do select all, it's gonna select everything, so the layer that we're working on. If we're gonna do select none, it's gonna just deselect everything. And invert is gonna invert what we have selected. Now, a good one, a nice one is by color. So if I click by color and I click, for example, in these eyes, you can see it's only gonna select those white spots. Also here on the nose. And this is a representation of the selection. It's similar to what an alpha channel looks like. But we're gonna talk about this later. Let's still work here with simple things. So I'm going to go to select and invert. So now I've inverted. You can see it from here, less from here. It looks the same, but instead of selecting the inside, we are selecting like the outside and all the way around. So we can invert. We can also use by color again and open the selection editor here. So, and we can also make it floating. So it's gonna stay floating until I say what I want to do with this. So for example, I can create a new layer using this selected, which is really interesting. And again, we're gonna continue with selection later. Now, let me just select again by color. And if I go back to image, I can do fit canva to selection. So you can see it's gonna limit the selection. It's gonna crop everything that is not inside that selection. So it's another interesting thing we can do. And then we have your print size. And this is what you want to do with your printer when you're ready to print. So again, you can change the width, the height. So it's another setting again. So when you go to file and print something with your printer, I don't have a printer right now, but you can connect your printer and then it's gonna print here what you defined into your composition. And that's it. So we're gonna talk about this later. And I want to just go back here to, and also we're gonna talk about other types of selection later, like the paths and other stuff like that. Let's finish with the view menu here. Let's see some additional things. So we already saw that we can create a duplicate using here image duplicate. But on the view, we can create a new view, which again is pretty similar. So we have a perfect copy of this, but in this case is the same exact image, because you can see here the title is test 2. So it didn't duplicate, but it just created a new one using the same exact document. So again, it's just a little bit different, but can be helpful sometimes. Now, show all, you can see that is going to show us like an infinite Canva to work with. But if we want to know the actual limit or margin, is still that yellow dashed line. So I think this could be more confusing than using the cropped Canva version. And these are like other things that you can do. So dot for dot means that a pixel on the screen represents an image pixel, which is probably good for printing. And then you have the zoom again. So we already talked again about the navigation. So this is again the zoom out, zoom in. Then we have the fit image into window. So everything is gonna go there in the window. So most of these things we already explained and discovered in the previous video. And again, we have 1-to-1, so 100% the size of the actual image. And here, let's see something else. And well, again, zoom to selection. If we are selecting something, we can zoom to selection. We can fill the window. And in this case, we are filling it again only so the width matches, but the height is a little bit more. And we can see definitely the pixels right here. So let's go down here. And also I want to show you something. If I scale the image, if I upscale, let's say to 1000, what GIMP is gonna try to do is to regenerate where it add pixels. It just need to create more pixels because we increase the size, so the number of pixels. So what it did, you can see, is this strange looking, like let me just deselect here. So you can see this strange looks. It's because the artificial intelligence of GIMP, it tried to recreate something that was really small into something that is really big. So it's kind of figure out all those missing pixels and colors, what they will be. There is not so precise. It's kind of a particular effect. Now I just want to show you this quick to make you understand. Then we have full screen here and shrink wrap for the software screen. And then we have navigation window that we already saw in the previous video. So then we have other stuff, but I want to talk about this later. It's just, again, a preview, or actually the easiest or the basic things that you can do with the selections, with the view, and with the image. Now, actually, one last thing I want to show you here in the view is the flip and rotate and the center image window. So if you center the image in the window, so let's say that you are right here, you want to center that quickly, you can do like this. So with the view, center image window, or Shift J, and flip rotate. Now, if we use here the flip and rotate here, it might be similar a first look to the transform right here, but it's a little bit different, because if we actually rotate, let's say 50 degree clockwise or counterclockwise, you can see it's actually rotating the canvas. It's not rotating the image again, but only the canvas. So it's, again, it's different. Now, if I save this, it's still going to be like a straight document, but I can work with this. For example, if I don't want to do straight lines, vertical or horizontal, if I want to do oblique graphics, this could be helpful. But remember, it's not here in the image, it's here on the view. And also I can define a rotation angle myself. Okay, so let's try to save this. Again, export as, let's call this test3, export, and quality. Again, this is about compression, and it's something that GIMP will do. So let's go to open, and you can see that test3, even though it looked rotated here, is not rotated right here. So it's gonna be the same. And you can see we decrease the size. Well, actually, we increase the size here because we increase the resolution a lot. So it's also increased the size because we have more pixels. So this will be all for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel, join the channel to support us to create more videos, guides, and courses. See you in the next.